everybody. Decidedly not Jonathan here to start the show, but in fact, Matt Kelly. We made a snap decision, totally forgot that today was the day that the Emmy nominations were going to come out, and saw the list coming up in real time on the internet. And I threw together a quick chat with all of the TV-loving podcasters of Geekscape to see if anybody could, with little notice, do a live stream, and it turns out the answer was no. So it's just me for the next hour just talking about television. That's not true. We have Geekscape's one of Geekscape's favorite married couples. We have Kate and Mark Hampton joining us to talk about these Emmy nominations. But equally important, all three of us are going to be at San Diego Comic-Con this time next week. So, I mean, let's talk about that real quick. I'm obviously going to be mostly hanging out at the table. Mark, you'll be joining me at the table for a large chunk of it too. But hey, please roam, enjoy, have fun. What are some of the things that you guys have been like really excited about with all of the Comic-Con news that's been dropping over the last week?
Dude, so many things. Mark, go ahead.
Well, okay, so this just dropped in the last 30 minutes, so you two may not have seen it. Deadline reporting that the Russo brothers are in negotiations to direct Avengers 5 and 6. We may have, there might be something about that at Hall H, perhaps.
Ooh.
A little nugget of information. That's very exciting. I know you may recall during the Infinity War Endgame press tour that they would always ask Russos if you could direct any Marvel property, any storyline from the comics, which one would you want to do? And they always said Secret Wars. So if that actually happens, I think it would be really cool and really beneficial for Marvel, because I think the Russos think outside the box. Because I read the other day, someone put this very eloquently, Marvel movies have just become their own brand. And it used to be like, you know, you do something that was like more spy, or like Taika did with like, you know, the science fiction and stuff like that. And so I think the Russos might bring back more of that
individuality.
Individuality, as opposed to just every Marvel movie feeling like a Marvel movie and not like, you know, a spy movie or something like that.
It almost felt like the individuality got pushed onto the Disney Plus shows more than the movies to a certain extent. Because like I can look at the Disney Plus shows as like very distinct subcategory of film, whereas like all of Phase 4 just felt like the same general tone of like, it's high action drama with a little dash of comedy, and like that was
always huge bummers.
Always,
everyone dies.
Not a fan of that. I know, Katie, I know that there's at least one radical party that you're desperately trying to get into. Any updates on Pizzagate?
Yes. No, wait. Wow, way to gotcha me. That was such a switch and pull. Oh God. No, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is having an activation brought to you by Super 7, and they've got a lot of like really cool stuff, and they also have a pizza pop-up for like a Mikey's Pizza pop-up or something. And I have gotten in contact with the PR manager for that event, and I believe we have a slot. I found out that Marie is actually way better at contacting these people than I am, because that's her job. Like that's what she does. I'm just like, I'm an actor.
Well, I was going to say, do you think that there's an element of that? Because like, I think that I sometimes do a better job on the East Coast than some of the West Coast people, because like anybody that you're emailing, I'm sure in the back of your mind, it's like, make sure that I don't say anything, because like this could be someone that like 10 years down the line, they're going to remember this awful email that they got from this person or whatever. Whereas like for me, I'm just like, I'll send the same email with a name change to 50 people just on the hopes that one will write back and be like, sure, why not? Like,
listen, Matt, I think I approach this much like I approach my acting career. I just kind of wing it at certain points. No, I'm just kidding, because I have a lot more training in acting. But like, there's definitely like an element where I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be the one doing like the official emails or things like that, because I also like there's so many events and there's so many emails coming in, and I'm like there's like a couple people that like I know in this event space, but I don't know the ones that are doing the activations I really, really want to go to. So
Maybe I'm thinking next steps. I'm always thinking of next year, even though we're not at this year.
might
If
as well.
that's something that Marie is like absolutely killing it at, maybe next year the plan is like Marie is the point of contact where people reach out. Like when you get a press release that you're interested in, it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm interested in this, and there's just one person who's doing all of the emailing and then like essentially assigning the stuff to the other press people so that we have it like more streamlined.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's a great idea. One of the things that we've been doing back and forth is we've been emailing each other like, "Hey, this looks interesting," or "I just got an email from this group of people," and I send it to Marie to just kind of do the like graceful hello
Yeah.
introductions. This is what we are. This is where we're from, and then like she sends it back to me, and she's like, "Okay, we have these slots of times," and I'm like, "Okay, so if we do this at this time and then this at this time, this will give us enough time to go to this." So maybe that's the game plan going forward. But yeah, no, I'm very excited for Comic-Con. It's gonna be great.
The only thing that I know for sure I'm leaving the convention center to do is on Thursday at noon I will be hosting the Weird Algorithm live podcast panel in the San Diego library. Very excited for that. And then that should be a lot of fun. And the one I don't know if it's an activation or if it's just going to be like, you know how like in the gas lamp there's just like shit
Stuff
that you can walk and take pictures of. And we'll dive into this particular topic in just a second. But Abbott Elementary is doing Ava Fest at some point, and I'm very curious to see like what that is as a fan of the show. So like I'm hoping that it's not for my sake is like big event that I need to be on a specific guest list to be able to partake in, and hoping that it's a little bit more of just like like when they had the Superstore open the one year and you could just like walk around inside the Superstore and see like things from this show that you liked. So you may have to do that vicariously for me, Katie, if it's a much bigger thing. All right, so what are we doing here? We're going to talk about the Emmy nominations. Those of you who are watching, feel free to throw out your hot takes, your feelings, your opinions. I'm curious because I feel like we might all be coming from similar but still different enough watching habits. For me, I am very strongly like a sitcom and reality television watcher. So like when I look at anything tied to the drama category, I'm just like, yep, heard this was great. And then like, but have no actual like attachment to any of it. But I know in our text chat, Katie, you specifically called out really rooting for a specific show that's nominated for a couple drama categories.
Mark and I talked about this earlier, but we're pretty sure it's going to sweep the Emmys this year. But Shogun has been an incredible joy to watch, and so intricately made, so delicately dealt with. Every single piece of this has been such a fun journey to watch, and I'm kind of shocked that we're getting a season 2, but intrigued at the same time. I feel like we've kind of developed the story of what the book gave us, and then I don't know where we're going from there, but it's a great show. Mark, I think you could speak a little bit more intricately to that.
It is a feat of filmmaking. It is phenomenally made. They shot in Vancouver, and it's just incredible. And Vancouver, perfect place to kind of double Japan because of the weather and everything. But the performances were incredible. The directing, the writing, cinematography, production, everything was just top notch. You do not get better. And its popularity is why it's getting season 2 and 3. They had zero interest in the beginning of giving it a season 2 and 3. In fact, they were originally submitting for limited series, and then they changed their minds and submitted it for drama afterwards when they decided they were going to do a season 2 and 3. That's how much they believe in the show, and they should.
Well,
it's quite excellent.
When you're not going up against the bear for drama, you might as well.
Yeah, another topic we'll definitely dive into. I want to ask one last question before we go into the individual categories here, but you did mention thinking that it's going to sweep. I feel like that has almost become this like reoccurring trope now at the Emmys, and I don't know how I feel about it. How do you feel about the like one show sweeping every category in its field? Like there are moments where it feels amazing, like when Schitt's Creek like absolutely swept the comedy category for their final season. There was like an element of excitement, but at the same time I feel like now it's becoming so regularly occurring at the Emmys that it really just like overshadows every other great performance and nominee, where it makes it feel like unless you're part of the Bear, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Or unless you're part of this, it
Well,
doesn't
and like,
matter.
and honestly, like it kind of, there's a theme of that a lot of years. Like I know Rami Malek and Tatiana Maslany should have won Emmys years and years ago, and then didn't really get their Emmys until their last seasons, I think.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things where it's just like, once it's in the zeitgeist and once people are talking about it, then it starts to kind of like, if there's buzz around the show, there's a likelihood that there's going to be a sweep.
Yeah.
It's always been that way.
Yeah.
You can go back to 1993 with NYPD Blue. And they got every writing nomination that year. Every one.
Yeah.
Every one. The West Wing, first season and second season. I believe they got every writing nomination. It wasn't a question of if Aaron Sorkin would win. The question was, would he share the Emmy with a co-writer? Because he was nominated individually 3 times, and he was nominated as part of a duo 3 times. So, I mean, you could say it's the same thing. 30 Rock kept sweeping categories. Modern Family kept sweeping categories. Yeah. Breaking Bad, what's the HBO show Succession? They were doing it. So it goes back. Sopranos did it. It goes back a long way. And I actually think the Emmys get it right more than the Oscars, to be perfectly honest.
Well, no, that's an absolute for sure. I mean, I think the Emmys and the Golden Globes have both kind of hit this category of I care more about those results than the Oscars, even though I watch all 3. Like I'm still going to tune in for all 3.
But when it comes to the Oscars, there's so many of those indie movies that it's like, oh, this A24 film wasn't screening at my local indie cinema. Like it's really more of an LA thing. Like I feel like there's a lot more of those categories in the Oscars where it's just like, yeah, you're not necessarily touching all of America in terms of this content. Whereas Emmys, like these are shows that people all over the world are enjoying. And I mean, you could say the same for some films in domestic and different regions or things like that. But with these kinds of shows, I mean, you're getting the ad sales. You have enough promotion in order for more people to watch it. And I think it's more accessible, which is what makes them a little bit more interesting.
Are we excited for Tony Hale to be one of the hosts this year? Because I am very excited about this.
Tony Hale could read the recipe of what I'm making for dinner tonight, and he'll be brilliant. So I'm always excited for Tony Hale.
And it's about time too. Like I haven't seen him in a hosting capacity, I don't think ever, right?
Yeah, it's about time is what we'll say. But all right, so let's dive in. I'm just going straight down the Wikipedia page. Sure. So they're starting with Outstanding Comedy Series. And we've got a bunch of nominees here. We've got Abbott Elementary, The Bear, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Hacks, Only Murders in the Building, Palm Royale, Reservation Dogs, and What We Do in the Shadows. Now, we talked about this jokingly already. The Bear sticks out like a sore thumb to me as not a show I put on for the laughs and feel good nature of a comedy.
Because it's not funny.
No, it's not particularly. It's a great show. It's not particularly funny. And I feel like it's still going to probably win this category because it's the most prestige show of all the ones nominated. And that bothers me a little bit.
and I think that there's like a risky business that we're having here where we're kind of diluting the comedy pool with things that aren't really comedies. I mean, granted, I will say that season 2 compared to season 1 of The Bear is a lot lighter. It grows a lot more. Like there's a lot more character development. I was very excited to see that. But it's not a comedy. Like it's a very interesting, serious show that has really cool things, especially when it comes to like working in a restaurant or working in a high-end restaurant. But dramedy either needs its own it needs its own category, or it like I just don't think you can categorize The Bear as somebody.
Yeah, and is the nomination, this is where I get confused too. Is the nomination for The Bear for season 2 or for season 3?
It's a good question.
It's for season 2. I looked it up. I looked it up. It's for season 2. If it was for season 3, there ain't no way. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't think there's going to be many voters that are going to go for season 3 as a comedy, bar none. Season 2. Thank you, Steven. Steven Wishnoff, amazing writer, hilarious actor, very, very great person. Look him up. But
so let's pretend The Bear isn't in this category. Of the remaining nominees, what ones are you kind of really riding for? I am new to finding this out, to watching this show, but I mean, I mentioned it already. Abbott Elementary has just like increasingly gotten better every single season, and it feels like this should be Abbott's year as an actual comedy.
I hope so. I really do hope so, because what they've done with that show has been pretty incredible. And I will admit we have kind of fallen off, but like to keep a network comedy series going as long as they have, I mean, what other network shows? All of these are all like, look, HBO, FX, Hulu, Apple TV, FX. You don't have a common network comedy out there anymore. Much less like a multicam, which apparently multicams are coming back really big right now, just in the pre-production stuff. But you don't see a network comedy even making the ranks of Emmys since what? Modern Family?
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just saying, I think Abbott Elementary is an excellent comedy on its own, but it means a lot because it puts people of color front and center, both creatively in front of the camera and behind the camera, and they knock it out of the park every week. And yes, to Katie's point, I really want to start seeing more networks taking advantage and putting half-hour comedies on their schedule for an entire year. I want to get back to the 20 to 24 episodes a year, and they're killing it every time. It's possible. It's absolutely possible, and I like them being rewarded for that.
Yeah,
I mean, even 2 shows that I really loved that were nominated, I don't think had strong enough. Like, I'm shocked that they're nominated because I don't think they were particularly good seasons this last year for Only Murders in the Building and What We Do in the Shadows. Like, I feel like I've seen both of those shows at their height already, and these feel like they're kind of working down again.
Well, there you go. And it's just like, oh, we haven't recognized you guys yet, which is funny because I mean, there is this thread of just like, oh, we haven't recognized these shows, and they've been on for so long, and it's their last season. We might as well do it now. And it's just like, what? But what would they do in the shadows? We've also fallen off of that because I don't know, the writing got like weird. And sloppy, and like I loved that show. Like I was all in for that sort of weird, Taika style comedy as a network. Well, I mean, not a network, but
I think it's because Taika started doing Wellington Paranormal instead, and they kind of lost that special spark that was in those early seasons a little bit.
Taika was spread thin. I mean, that's always been Jermaine's baby for the most part. I mean, he's the one that's been running it since season 1. But I think he needs Taika. I think he needs, those two need balance sometimes. I really do.
100%. All right,
they need balance.
Yeah.
So the last question I'll ask with the comedy category is there any show that you're kind of like, either I can't believe it wasn't nominated, or at the max being like, this is a show that I don't think enough people are talking about, and if there was more buzz behind it, it might have a fighting chance. Like for me, I am absolutely in love with Acapulco on Apple TV.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand how this show, which I think is just brilliantly written, brilliantly acted, brilliantly paced, has like gotten, it is like the next Ted Lasso of Apple TV in falling into that same just like feel good, like not a bad character to be found, no villain in the show, just like good vibes comedy series that like no one is talking about.
Well, and I wonder if it's because it's also a very diverse show.
Yeah.
That maybe that's why it's not being talked about. I mean, it's set in the 80s. Like, we have a big 80s theme going on in a lot of our content. I'm sure we're going to get a 90s push pretty soon here, but it might just be I mean, trust me. We got 10-15. No, but like, I mean, you considered all the other like comedies that are out there, and it's funny because I'm struggling to pull comedies in my brain right now. I'm like, the only thing I can think of right now is Loot, but I don't think it's necessarily deserving quite yet of an Emmy nom. I think they are going towards some really cool stuff, and they have a really funny show on their hands, and I of course love Maya Rudolph, but like, when you're competing against sort of these headier pieces like The Bear or even Hacks, which is a very funny, very good, very realistic show. And I love how they do that show, especially like the behind the scenes of creating jokes and like how snippy that comedians can get with each other. I think it's really well done, but I also wouldn't necessarily categorize that technically as a comedy.
Yeah. Well, and that's like you said, we're getting into that weird category. So let's look at the dramas then for a second. So the drama category, outstanding drama series, we had The Crown, Fallout, The Gilded Age, The Morning Show, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Shogun, Slow Horses, and The Three Body Problem. I literally saw 2 of these shows. I saw The Morning Show, which I feel like I just watched out of just necessity, and I've never really loved The Morning Show. I adored Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I was very excited to see that get nominated, but obviously everything I'm hearing from you guys, from the Bingetown TV podcast, from anybody who follows television, it's Shogun, right? Like that's what this is the year.
I think this is the year of Shogun. I would say that Slow Horses is incredible and really deserves some Emmy noms and deserves a lot of awards every season. I'm not sure which season Slow Horses is nominated for, but that first and second season were amazing. Third was great as well. But I think because of everything that went into Shogun and Hiroyuki Sanada, like everything, I think it's going to be Shogun for sure. But these are really great nominations. I will say we saw Three Body Problem, and it is interesting. I wouldn't give it a nom personally. I didn't think it was intricately crafted. I didn't think it like had too much intrigue. I kind of got annoyed every episode.
Can confirm.
I just would get so rageful and be like, really? Okay, so we're doing this now? Like, it's just,
yeah, that never feels good when you're watching the show and that's your like takeaway is like, oh, okay, this is your honestly.
No, and here's the thing: if you liked Three Body Problem, let me tell you, Mark, you're gonna know the show that I'm thinking of right now on Apple TV Plus. Dark Matter. Watch Dark Matter. Watch Dark Matter, watch Dark Matter, watch Dark Matter. It's better than Three Body Problem. Anyway, that'll probably get a nomination next year.
I do want to throw out a fun fact about Dark Matter. I don't know if either of you know this. So our friends at Bingetown TV who do amazing work. It's the most downloaded show on our podcast, on the podcast network by a very wide margin. It's a team of 9 TV fans that break into groups of 3 to do episode by episode breakdowns of all genre shows on television. But their Dark Matter coverage, not only was it huge numbers for our network, every single week, the showrunner of Dark Matter shared their podcast, declaring it the unofficial podcast of the show.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right.
Like, he's like, these people get it. These people get it. So
well done.
So just a shout out, check out Bingetown TV. I'm listening to their The Boys coverage right now because I'm finally getting caught up on The Boys. And talk about it. You know, you were saying like things that get you frustrated. I like this season of The Boys, but there is a lot of plot holes and plot armor happening in season 4 that I'm not exactly in love with. But okay, so I think the best way to do is we'll just keep going down these categories. But once we get through this like bucket, I think we can speed run the acting ones because there's not really new shows that are jumping out once we get into that.
Sure.
So we've got this is going to be
I haven't talked about the dramas at all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm being so rude. Mark, tell us your thoughts on the dramas, and also let me, again, as a non-drama watcher, let me know if there's any dramas that you feel are being snubbed too that we should be thinking about.
Well, I only just recently started Zoloft, so I haven't watched the morning show yet. Maybe. I think I'm about 2 weeks away from being balanced down enough to watch
That
it.
was literally one of those shows that I was like, I just don't have the wherewithal right now to emotionally go through that.
It's too dour for me. And I'm feeling that even about The Boys. Like, there are moments where I'm like, this is just too goddamn real.
It's too much. The penis exploding was
that was the last one we watched
for me.
That was the end.
I was like, I think this will do it. Three Body Problem. I really enjoyed from a pulpy standpoint. I don't know if they're deserving to stand in the category with the rest of those shows. Again, I do think Shogun should probably clean up in those awards. What were the other shows that were nominated? We're going through
so the other ones were The Crown, assuming season 5 of The Crown, Fallout on Prime, which I know a lot of people love.
It's phenomenal. It's really
great.
well done.
Yeah, The Gilded Age, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Slow Horses are the ones that we haven't really said too much.
I loved Slow Horses. I think it's an excellent show. I don't think it beats Shogun. Mr. and Mrs. Smith was it was not my cup of tea. I fell off about halfway through. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I felt it was like this weird misplaced tension that I kind of loathe it when discomfort is the goal of any creator. It kind of drives me crazy. It's like, I want you to feel uncomfortable. It's not
entertaining.
Story.
Something happened between Atlanta and Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Donald Glover, where like Atlanta did a good job of pushing the discomfort while still being like very comedic and enjoyable. Whereas that was just like, it ramped a little bit too much. And I almost feel like I'd be happier if it was a limited series. Like, the idea that there is a second season, I think, is going to hurt whatever that first season was. Like, I don't know. I feel you on that. Even though of the two dramas I watched, it's the one I liked more than The Morning Show. It's not exactly high praise.
If you watch Shogun, you're gonna realize exactly why we're gunning so hard for Shogun.
You download some episodes, Matt. Watch them on the plane out to Comic-Con.
That's not a bad idea.
But I agree with my esteemed colleague Steven in the chat. I think Shogun and Slow Horses are top notch for me as well.
Okay. And was there anything that either of you thought, like, how did this not get a nomination? Or
I'll tell you, the way the schedule is now, I can't keep track of what is up for, like, because I would definitely say Dark Matter, but I'm sure they didn't make the cutoff point.
That'll be next cycle.
I'm actually a little surprised Sugar didn't get any talk with Colin Farrell. That was a really
an
really
intriguing show. Yeah, that was a show that kind of it surprises you, but it's funny because you get halfway through the show, you realize something, and it doesn't change anything. It's just as good and it's just as well done. It's very noir, and seeing Colin Farrell and that, it's great.
I do have one show that I'm not surprised wasn't nominated, but if I were on the nominating committee, I would vote for it to be nominated. It's the show Foundation on Apple TV Plus.
That was incredible.
Show is excellent, absolutely excellent. I just think it is so well made. It is beautifully shot. It's one of the few television shows that shoots on anamorphic lenses. You can tell, and they have a big old sensor on that camera. I'm a big camera tech person, so that always jumps out to me. It's excellent storytelling. It's run by David Goyer and Jane Espenson, who aren't always the purveyor of my favorite fiction, but they have knocked it out of the park in my opinion. I think the strong cast, also putting people of color front and center, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I wish it would get more love because it's quite excellently made show.
All right. So let's dive into the limited series, anthology series category, which again, I have to confess, have seen none of these actually. We have Baby Reindeer, we have Fargo, we have Lessons in Chemistry, we have Ripley, and we have True Detective Night Country.
Now, we have only watched halfway through the one show of this, Lessons in Chemistry, and I thought it was really phenomenally made, really well done. they played with tension so much that we kind of were like, I'm a little exhausted after this show and need a break. It's interesting. I have heard a lot about Baby Reindeer. That's one of those shows though that like when it came up and like I heard the premise of it, I was like, no, not right now. I'm good with being uncomfortable while watching my entertainment. Like that's the last thing I want to do is just be completely stressed out while I'm trying to relax.
Well, and I feel like Baby Reindeer came out at this time, and it's a time that we've been stuck in for, I feel like, the last 3 or 4 years, where it's just like too much content dropping all at the exact same time, and you just have to pick and choose which is the horse you're going to back, and then maybe you'll go back to the other options later. And I think I remember Baby Reindeer just coming out at the same time as like 3 or 4 other shows. I was way more invested in jumping into instead, and then heard it was apparently great or whatever. But
yeah,
I've heard good things as well. Fargo is always solid, so Fargo is always a except I don't know what Fargo is a limited series. I know it's anthology, but it's like it comes back every year, or not every year.
Yeah,
I mean, you can say the same thing about True Detective. You know.
Yeah, and I would. I don't understand why it's a limited series when it's the 3rd season. I understand this anthology, but it's the 3rd season or the 4th season, whatever it is. Let's just put it in the comedy while we're at it. Doesn't fucking matter.
I was just gonna say.
There's a kitchen in one episode. It might as well be the bear.
I've never seen any of True Detective, which I know is a problem that I have to fix one of these days. But I know that this particular season was very divided. Like I heard people either saying best season since season 1, and I've heard other people say this broke the entire show. Like they've ruined it.
Well, the creator was of True Detective, who was no longer associated with the show, but is still an EP. They let their thoughts be known far and wide, which I felt was completely taboo and just not something I would do. It actually sparked a big online debate on social media, of course, where nuance goes to thrive. But there was a lot of people in Hollywood. Stephen DeKnight, a showrunner I followed, responsible for the first season of Daredevil and the Spartacus series. He made a very good point. He was like, I would never trash somebody else's creation because this is hard. Like, Katie and I will talk a little shit on the couch, but I'm going to go far and wide to knock people
down for their original work.
It's just that it's not worth it in the industry.
It's hard enough. It's hard enough to get one thing made,
Well, and I also the one thing I know is that it leaned into a more like paranormal angle, but they also hired a horror director for that, which means that someone must have intended higher up. Like, it's the same thing with like when Marvel hires a comedy director, like it tells you right out the gate, okay, we're leaning towards more of a lighthearted comedic tone with this. So, I mean, the decision of who to hire for that season already said that someone higher up had already made their decision that this was where they wanted to go with the show well before the creator even got into the writing chair. All right, so let's talk about reality television. Outstanding reality competitive program. We've got some show that no one cares about, The Amazing Race here.
Boo.
Rough.
Shout out editors team.
Yeah, shut up.
I told the team this morning, get your gowns and tuxes ready.
The RuPaul's Drag Race, Top Chef, The Traitors, and The Voice. Obviously, they always love RuPaul's Drag Race. Loved The Traitors season 1, hated this season of The Traitors personally. And I thought interesting to me is no Survivor nomination this year. Which,
really?
I mean, that just sticks out to me because I feel like Survivor is like, to me, the golden standard of the reality TV boom longevity at this point. Like, it just feels like it just would get a nominee every year. Why wouldn't it? Like, it's Survivor. But Yeah, what say you? I know you're close to one of the source materials here. But...
Listen, I don't think we can speak objectively about this because we both work in on The Amazing Race. That's our day job.
Well, that's who's obviously going to win anyway. So,
but
Well, and
probably, and I
might-
think it
yeah.
has supplanted Survivor as kind of the go-to. But but funny enough, we don't watch any of the shows, even the one we work on. So,
I mean, that's the thing.
it's hard
We've
to-
watched one episode that we've worked on, and it's the first episode I've ever watched The Amazing Race. I'm like, oh, this is good. I get why people like it. I have seen all the raw footage. I have no idea. I also don't. Here's the thing. I kind of wish they would say what seasons it was.
yeah, because I don't
as
know
well.
which season of. Well, yeah, because I believe Amazing Race and Survivor do 2 seasons a year.
Typically, yeah. And last year,
Yeah.
give us more work.
Money,
but
please.
but yeah, I mean, last year was a huge deal too because we had pushed so hard going from a 60-minute episode to a 90-minute episode, and like doing that transition was like such a wild ride. But it was like, well, okay, so but which season are you talking about?
Yeah, that's well.
I know there's a season that like I wouldn't really.
Well, but no, like honestly, as someone who just started getting into watching Survivor, which is insane to just start watching Survivor at season 50, like 48 or whatever.
You got to start somewhere.
But like when I watch both seasons each year, there is definitively a season I always like more than the other one between those two. I'm not like, oh, they were both even ground. Like, as you know, like one does a better, sometimes they do a better job of manufacturing the drama. Sometimes absolutely nothing happens and it's boring as hell for like 10 episodes. Like, so I agree. They should be, especially on those shows that get 2 seasons a year, they should be telling you which specific season it is. Well, let's step away from something that you're so emotionally tied to. And let's go with the shortest nominee list. Outstanding scripted variety series, which is the battle of Saturday Night Live versus Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's tough to say because SNL's been pretty good.
It's going to be Last Week
for a
Tonight
couple
with
years.
John Oliver.
But I was going to say Last Week with John Oliver has more consistency in its goodness. SNL always hinges on the quality of the hosts still. No matter how good their team is, it's like, if it's a musician or an athlete that's showing up to host, you can guarantee that there's going to be a couple duds that just like naturally make their way in there. But there are like 3 or 4 episodes this season. I'm blanking on the comedian's name, but Nate something.
Sestina? No,
what you just said.
Bergazzi.
I mean, that Nate Bergazzi episode literally gave us like 3 or 4 of the best sketches in like SNL history in my mind. Like that George Washington sketch.
Yep.
Unbelievable. I also like the one where he's on the soul food competition and he keeps winning and apologizing. Like there's so many really good bits that they did. This was one of the strongest years of SNL in a while. Yeah, Pedro Pascal and Ryan Reynolds also.
He's just trying to get some butt. That slayed me. Ego Nuotum. I'm saying that.
Nuotum, yeah.
Nuotum. Yes, I don't want to mispronounce that. Yeah. So he's just trying to get. What did she call him? Oh, I can't remember. I could go on all day about it. So he's just trying to get some butt. I thought that was so damn funny.
But yeah, we all agree that it's going to John Oliver regardless.
Right. Well, here's the thing:
is that like show nominated?
No, it's just
those two.
Just those two.
And here's the thing, I
Daily Show
totally
got talk series this year instead of scripted shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing. Like SNL, I think I agree, is like it really does depend on the host. It really does depend on like what writers write it out of the park at that point in that week. You know, like and that's a high rise like to like achieve every single week. John Oliver also has like a lot of really good educational stuff that like you will quote it and think it's funny, but you'll also be like, oh, I didn't know that about that company or whatever the case is. So like you're coming away with a little bit more than just a couple of really funny quotes that you're going to just quote with your friends for the rest of time or a meme.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm trying to see how many episodes he does per season of Last Week Tonight as well. Because
He does a big amount.
no, he does. I'm actually blown away.
I think he
about
does more
20,
than SNL.
Yeah, it's like 25 to 30 episodes a
Yeah.
year. So okay, never mind. I was gonna say maybe it's easier for less content, but no, it is not. But yeah, I mean, congratulations, John Oliver. You'll have another award for the mantle. Outstanding talk series. We've got The Daily Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Late Night with Seth Meyers, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It's probably going to go to Daily Show, I would imagine, but I got to ride for my guy. I'm drinking out of my late night corrections Seth Meyers mug right now. I love what Seth Meyers has done with that show. I love the closer look segments are great. His online content with corrections is legitimately should be nominated for best comedy series. It has more it's more serialized than some of the other things in the comedy series.
I will say this though, Kimmel has been bringing on Martin Short for the Jiminy Glick stuff.
Oh
so
yes,
I wonder. I know, and I doubt that even qualifies as the category for this year for Jimmy Kimmel. But at the same time, that's what's in people's minds right now, and that's what's being memed and like reposted a bunch is the Jiminy Glick like revamp interviews and things like that. So I'm wondering if Kimmel's going to have a little bit more of a push. Because people are more focused on those interviews.
And would the Daily Show stuff be including the return of Jon Stewart, or would that technically be next year?
I should hope so.
That is 100% this year. He's been back for a while now.
Yeah.
I mean, his stuff has been home runs every time that he's on. So
well, there's a reason.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best to do it. Like,
I mean, he was the closest we had to Carson.
Yes.
When I was younger. I mean, I grew up with watching Carson with my parents, and he went off I think I was 11 or 12 or something like that. And I never witnessed someone capture the zeitgeist so consistently like Jon Stewart since Carson. So and he's still got it. He's still really good. He's still really good.
And I would say fairly similar to Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert has also still got it and still does an amazing show. I just don't think it's quite at the top of everyone's list at the moment, which is unfortunate because I love Colbert. He does an amazing job. But yeah, I don't think it's quite at the top this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go to the last category here, which is the Outstanding Variety Special. We have the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show starring Usher, the 66 Grammy Awards, the greatest roast of all time with Tom Brady, the Oscars, and the 79th annual Tony Awards. I don't know how they even go about trying to figure out what gets nominated, what doesn't get nominated for this category sometimes. I also feel like the Tom Brady roast was so recent that it confuses me into what the timeline is for this, because I feel like that was like a couple weeks ago.
It goes till the end of May, I believe. I think.
Then they may have just made it.
I think made it. And look, I'm all about being mean to Tom Brady for an hour straight. I think it's blast. But I also don't want anything with Tom Brady's name to be rewarded. He has enough awards.
He does. But I will say,
as a person who watches all of the award shows, the Grammys were unexpectedly very good this year.
Nice.
Like there was a lot of good performances and stuff.
I didn't watch them. I never really have interest in the Grammys, but I did hear that they had some really incredible performances and stuff going on. I will say that, again, kind of talking about like the memeability and the talk, at least, has been around the Tom Brady stuff, mainly because of
what got cut.
No, what didn't get cut, which I think was it Nikki Glaser? No, it was Eliza Schlesinger. Who was it?
I think it was Nikki Glaser. Nikki Glaser was like the runaway star of that.
She obliterated him.
She obliterated him, and it was hysterical. And I don't think they cut much of her stuff because she knows how to do this.
Yeah,
she was like a Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. That's how hard she crushed him. That's a football joke.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Well
great
done.
joke for the viewers of Geekscape, I'm sure.
There's that one guy going, finally!
Yeah!
The one Madden player.
Yeah, why have I been watching this for 45 minutes? Finally, he's giving me something.
One for it's a family show for everyone.
I mean, at the end of the day, is there anybody like, I know when it comes to like the comedy category and the drama category and even the limited series category, there's people who are riding real hard for one thing. I don't want to meet the person who's riding real passionately on what should win the outstanding variety special category of the Emmys.
I mean, I'm sure it's the hosts, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the people that worked on the show that want to get more work.
I mean, that's why I'm gunning for
them.
Yeah, that's why I'm gunning for the Amazing Race.
Yeah.
You know, that also helps fund more projects and better working circumstances. So, yeah, I have no idea what I didn't even realize that was a category. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, hilarious.
It just feels like, oh, well, where's the Oscar for the Emmys?
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, so for the sake of A, time, and B, me trying to read a bunch of people's names and then getting them entirely wrong and offending people, just when it comes to the acting categories, I just want to shout out some of the people who were nominated for shows that didn't get nominated in the bigger categories real quick. So in Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, we did see Maya Rudolph get a nomination for Loop. For Outstanding Lead in a Drama Series, we got Aldris Alba for Hijack, and we also got no, that was the only one in there. And then there was one more that was jumping out at me. Okay, so lead in a limited anthology series / movie. I think it's Matt Bomer for Fellow Travelers on Showtime, and Tom Hollander for Feud Capote versus the Swans. And I think that's it as far as people nominated for shows that weren't nominated for Best Drama or Best Comedy categories.
I really wish Capote versus the Swans was just Truman Capote in like a shallow pool fighting swans. Like, dude, it would immediately have my
There's
vote.
still time. There's still time. We could. It would be as funny as the bear at a minimum. So
yeah. I mean, in terms of that, I think who's going to win is likely going to be Sofia Vergara for Griselda. That has a lot of buzz around it.
That was the other one I missed. Yes.
Yeah. In terms of lead actor, I would be shocked, honestly, if Jeremy Allen White led for the comedy series because he's just hysterical in that role.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Berry win because he's.
I hope so.
He's nominated.
Does deserve an award after all these
hysterical on that show.
Absolutely.
I think if Idris's character in Hijack had just let the terrorist crash the plane, he would get the win. But that show is so awful that I don't think there's a chance in hell of him winning that. Handsome though he is, but
we never shit talk in public. We only do that on the couch.
I'm rooting for the terrorists just to make it over. I think you have a problem.
The other one that the other show that has a single acting nominee but no other nominees is for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Limited or Anthology Series, Lily Gladstone for Under the Bridge.
Oh and I hope she does win that because she's been in the business for so long and she's wonderful, a really talented actress.
She's darling. She's just a darling.
And there's no other big surprises. Let's see, when we go into the directing category, two things jump out. So for Outstanding Directing of a Comedy Series, an episode of The Gentleman is nominated, as well as an episode of The Miss Pat Show.
The Gentleman is very well directed show.
Very well directed show.
I liked the movie that it's based on. I haven't watched the show yet, but
it's not quite based. It's kind of like adjacent to. There are no characters from the movie that appear either through recasting or just the original character. It's but it's kind of deals with the same thing, the marijuana trade in England. But it's a really excellent show. Really awesome.
Yeah, it's really well done. Yeah, I will say, just sort of looking down the list here, going into the guest actors, the one person that I feel like kind of got snubbed was the actor who plays Cousin in The Bear. I would say he should absolutely have been nominated.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Was he?
I mean,
he's just the best supporting actor, not guest actor.
Supporting. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he is the character that most explains it being a comedy.
And he'll win.
He is the funny character in that show.
He's gonna win Best Supporting Actor for season 2 of The Bear. That's
as he should for Forks alone. Yeah.
Like it will be. It'll be for Forks. Like I don't know when the world is ending, but I know one thing to be sure: he's gonna win the Best Supporting Actor. I know that.
I love to hear. I love hearing that. All right, and the last one in the directing category that's jumping out is outstanding directing for a drama series is the only place where Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty has a nomination for the episode Beat LA, which was a great but very short-lived show for HBO. I was, as someone who could care less about most sports, I was actively hooked to watching every week what was happening on Winning Time.
Another casualty of Warner Brothers Discovery's cost-cutting measures. It was a very good show, and it's an excellently made, well-directed show as well. It deserved more.
And then in the writing category, we have 2 others that jumped out. Girls 5 Eva gets their only nomination here for the episode Orlando. Just a great show, super underrated show. And I don't know what the other 2 is, but the other 2,
it's great.
Okay.
It's a fun show. It's actually worth
Comedy Central show.
Comedy Central show. It's very funny, and it basically follows.
Isn't Yorma in that show? Isn't that Yorma Tacone? Isn't he starring that show?
Shut the fuck up right now.
Who is it, baby?
It's
Drew Tarver. They look so much alike. It's easy to get them confused.
So
no one would do that.
I was on set for a very lovely film, and I thought it was Yorma. I only saw him for the back, and I didn't check the cast list. And I was like, so I told a friend who knows Yorma, hey, Yorma's on set today. It's really cool. And he's like, oh, tell him I say hi. So I went up to him, tapped him on the shoulder, and I was like, hey, Gabe Cullen says hello. And then I realized that's not Yorma, that's Drew Tarver. And one of the most embarrassing things, because he was like, oh, hey, and then just like walked away. And I was so embarrassed that I just sat there in my sweat and just being like, and I'm in a chicken costume because it was for Unfrosted. And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't even know what to do. And I just
see, what I think she should have done is gone to everybody else that was doing the costumes and tell every one of them to go up to Drew Tarver and be like, hey, Gabe Cullen says hi, and drive him insane by the end of it. He's like, who is this guy? He's going to kill me. What's going to happen? I don't know. I've offended him.
It's like your version of the Tig Notaro, Taylor Dane thing.
100% is Taylor Dane, yeah. No, I'm probably going to run into Drew Tarver for the rest of my life. It's fine. Because he's also in a lot of improv communities. So, like, it's good times.
I do have to shout out, again, continuing the theme that we've been talking about, where like The Bear as a comedy series, the idea that for outstanding writing of a comedy series, the episode Fishes from The Bear is nominated, which might be the most stressful hour of television I've ever sat through. I feel like that, even if you wanted to argue that The Bear has comedy elements, there are 9 other episodes that you could have nominated from season 2 to represent that better than Fishes, which will probably win the award.
It shouldn't. I'm saying that absolutely loving and hating that episode because it was so real. It was too real. And I just feel like we're blurring the lines of what comedy actually is, and it's driving me insane because we're not actually comedy out of this. We're getting really good actors, we're getting really good directors, we're getting really good writing, but it's not comedy. It's not funny. Maybe it's funny in a fucked up, twisted way, but at the same time, just because it is very realistic does not mean that it is a comedy. You can't say that.
Yep. Just because it gave me PTSD, because it reminded me of some Thanksgivings, doesn't mean, and I laughed hysterically, stopped from crying, doesn't mean it's a comedy.
Yeah.
I'm not liking at least our American thread of like our trauma is now comedy. It's like maybe we shouldn't have that.
Yeah, that
maybe
might
trauma
not
shouldn't
be
be fun.
ideal.
And not to beat a dead horse, but there are a lot of dramas out there that are really funny and have won awards. The West Wing, even though it's been a hot minute since it's been on air, those first 4 seasons were hysterical, but it was still at its core a dramatic show, and it was rewarded as such. And I think it's a disservice to everyone to put that show in a comedy when it is clearly a dramatic show that has moments of levity, but not as much as some shows that are still dramas.
Let me just say, there is no levity in Fishes.
No, that's what I like. My mind was blown when I saw that was in the category for comedy. And then the very last show, outstanding writing for a limited or anthology series or movie. This is where we get the only nomination for Black Mirror, the episode Joan is Awful, which was the premiere episode of the 6th season. I haven't watched any Black Mirror since the British run of the show, so I have nothing to add here.
Been a hot minute.
Yeah, but I am excited. I always love award season time, as tacky and lame as it is. You'll still find me sitting right in front of the TV watching every single one of them. Ordering like some not buffalo. Well, I hate buffalo sauce, but ordering some type of boneless wings to eat while with my girlfriend. We our new discovery. Side note is there's an Applebee's directly behind my house, which I feel like Applebee's ranks pretty high in the franchise restaurant world.
It's pretty
You can get boneless wings smothered in honey pepper sauce, which has been like the game changer of wings for both of us. Like we'll just regularly DoorDash boneless wings from Applebee's to us with extra dipping sauce of this honey pepper chicken sauce. It is so good. Trust me. You don't have to do it, but just trust me.
Fair enough.
Listen, you know how I love a good franchise restaurant. We're going to be having Spaghetti Factory any day now. In all of its glory.
Thursday night.
Maybe, Thursday night, maybe. And also the hotel that we're staying at is right next to the Cheesecake Factory. So you better believe that I'm also going to be like, let's go to Cheesecake Factory at least one night this at San Diego Comic-Con. Speaking of which, beautiful lead into the wrap up of this show. Come and see all 3 of us at San Diego Comic-Con. And Mark and Katie, what do you have to quickly promote real fast? The Emmy for the comedy series goes to the Cheesecake Factory.
You know,
beautiful comment, love it.
As well it should.
The writing is incredible.
Yeah, those they get 24 episodes on that menu. Easy.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right, so Mark, tell us where people can go to check out more of the things that you do, and if you have anything you want to quickly promote before we wrap up.
Hey man, Mark Hampton on Twitter. I won't call it X, it's Twitter, and I probably won't even tweet on there, but that's where you can find me. I don't tweet a lot. Katie and I are currently in the works. We are attempting to fundraise a feature film project. Ooh. So that is a focus of ours for the next calendar year. I think we may have, an investor. We're setting up a meeting with that, so we might get our first yes, and then hopefully the dominoes fall after that. It's an action comedy, kind of harkens back to action comedies of the 80s and 90s. We want to make it on a low budget, but with really an excellent unknown cast, excellent unknown crew, and so that's what we're working on. That's what I'm working on. At least.
All right. Can't wait for more news on that. Katie.
Yeah. So, look that up on an IMDb Pro or something like that. Give us some star bumps. No, just kidding. You can always find me at Elsassipants, ELSASSYPNTS, sometimes with a Z. You can also hear me on the Napping Through Happy Hour podcast with my good friend Marie Brand. You can also find us down at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll be doing a lot of interviews and stuff down there. And then if you're in LA, come by next Wednesday, July 24th, I believe it is. And we are doing a show with my new improv group, Faux Pas, at the Pack Theater that is recently relocated to a great place with parking. So go check it out at thepacktheaterla.com.
Woo! And I have just a bunch of podcasts. No need to run down all of them, but like I said, Weird Algorithm is the one that's going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. So definitely check out Weird Algorithm every week. Me and Matt Milligan of the band Wheatus break down every single thing that Weird Al has done in chronological order. We're currently in the middle of my personal favorite Weird Al release, Bad Hair Day. So we're covering all of the tracks from Bad Hair Day right now. And at Comic-Con, we'll be discussing all of the TV songs that Al has ever released. So stay tuned for that. It'll be myself, Matt, the hosts of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, Jeff, who is the director of the documentary Show Gals, Bear to Be Stupid, about the all Weird Al burlesque show in Nebraska, and Jackie, who is the wife of Dave from Dave and Ethan, who has been to, I believe, more Weird Al shows than almost any other person on Earth, and also hosts a horse podcast. So stay tuned for all of these great people talking about TV songs from Weird Al Yankovic. I'm sure that there's going to be an episode 700 of Geekscape coming up on Sunday night, I believe. So stay tuned for that. And then I'm bringing the soundboard to San Diego Comic-Con. So even though Jonathan will only be there for preview night, we will be documenting all of the fun things on the soundboard. Hit up the Geekscape Forever Instagram page, because I'm sure that when I give Katie, Marie, and Shane access to that, they will be posting stories galore from all the things they're doing out and about in San Diego. And then come and hang out with Mark and I at the booth. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's 16 something. And just find Troma. We're right by Troma. Find us.
Look for the green.
Yes, just look for green. And stay tuned for more Geekscape content.